today. Evan and Tiki on this spring-like Monday. And also day one of 15 consecutive shows where I got to color my beard. So day one, Tiki, what color is my beard?
It's very royal. It's purple. Purple's for royalty.
Purple royalty, baby.
I love it.
That's right.
It actually doesn't look that horrible.
Thank you.
I mean, it's silly and crazy looking, but it's actually not that bad.
It's given me thoughts that I may go permanent. That I may stick
permanently
with
purple?
Yeah, permanently purple. We'll be able to send you pictures out on these social media platforms a little bit later on. But last night was a very, very, very stressful night for my friends that are Knicks fans. And I join you in that stress because I watched the entire Knicks game at an airport, at the Fort Lauderdale airport, while waiting out a very, 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 very long plane delay. And the biggest thing I took away from last night's game, and we'll get to Jalen Brunson, we'll get to your concerns, but the biggest thing I took away from last night's Knicks game is great news for you. Incredible news for Knicks fans, because I will speak right now as an IBO, as an independent basketball observer. All year long, I thought that the Cleveland Cavaliers learned from their embarrassing experience of a year ago when the New York Knicks, excuse my language, bitch-slapped them in the opening round of the NBA playoffs. And I thought they learned. I thought they kind of had that thing on their back. What's that phrase? We got something on your back?
The monkey.
The monkey on your back, whatever it is. And they were playing differently in 2024. They were overcoming injuries in 2024. And last night, and there were a few moments where it was so obvious, the New York Knicks, without Julius Randle, without OG Anunoby, without Jalen Brunson for every second besides 44 of them, the New York Knicks reminded the Cleveland Cavaliers who their daddies are. They can't beat you. So, look, you've got two huge questions you got to answer going into the postseason. One is health. We all know that. We can't predict it. You got to keep your fingers crossed. And the second is your opponent. Because you can mark my words right now on March 4th at 2:04 p.m. Eastern time. If you play those frauds from Cleveland, you're going to smoke them because they're frauds, Tiki. And the Knicks reminded you that last night in Cleveland.
Yes, they did. We railed on Friday when you were down in Port St. Lucie. Actually, you were just down in Florida. So you're visiting your sister. You weren't actually at camp the whole time. But we talked about all the injuries that have plagued New York sports. And the Knicks obviously leading the charge because they're the current team in season right now. And then you get this Jalen Brunson injury, and it's like, oh, here we go again. It's another excuse for why they're going to lose again. And they didn't. And part of the reason they didn't is because Tom Thibodeau, despite our ire and disgust at how he runs his rotation sometimes, actually has developed some pretty good backups on this team. Deuce McBride
Played every second
after Brunson got hurt. Precious Achiuwa, he's been really important for this team, especially with the Hart injury. And so, yes, the New York Knicks own the Cleveland Cavaliers. Do I want to have them drop to the 6th seed and flirt with the play-in tournament?
Yes.
Probably not.
Yes.
Probably not. But if there is one team that you are pining for, if you are the New York Knicks, it's the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Well, and I'll tell you something else. When you look into someone's eyes and you know they're defeated, when you look into someone's eyes and you know they've already lost. Mike Tyson used to have this when he fought guys back in the day. J.B. Bickerstaff, before the game, made it plainly obvious he is scared of the New York Knicks. During that game, late in the game, on that out-of-bounds call that he challenged and won, but had a hissy fit about a foul that he thought was called, proved he's afraid of the New York Knicks. And I'll tell you another moment where I knew that this Cleveland Cavalier team, if you play them, I'm telling you, you don't even need everybody healthy. If you play this team, you will smoke this team. They are frauds.
Well, Donovan was out, too. So,
well, let's get to him. And I love Donovan Mitchell, all right? I got a warm feeling in my heart for Donovan Mitchell. He's a Met fan. He's a Jet fan. But last night, when Josh Hart hit that crazy three, and how amazing was Josh Hart last night? You talk about a guy that represents who the New York Knicks are. I don't think there's a guy that represents the dog in them, as Loogie likes to say, more than Josh Hart. When Josh Hart hit that crazy three, and he turns around, and he touches Donovan Mitchell to taunt him. Dude, if Donovan Mitchell had any balls, he would have punched him in the face. Like, I'm not even kidding you. You're in the middle of the game. This is a playoff atmosphere, and you let this fraud just touch you? Just be like, oh, yeah, hey, how's it going? And Don looks at him like, yeah, whatever. I'm not going to do anything about it. That's who they are.
They don't have a fight. They don't have a fight in them.
They have no fight in them, and that's who they are. They will let you push them around. And that was, I'm telling you, I sat there at that airport watching this game, and I get the nervousness around Brunson. We'll get to that. But it was a reminder that if you play these frauds in the first round, you can beat them.
Yeah, we saw it last year as well. They were out-coached. They were out everything. Hustled defensively. They couldn't score. I mean, the Cavaliers couldn't score. And, you know, as much as we talk about Tom Thibodeau, we have to acknowledge that there's a little bit of what he espouses flowing through all of these guys.
Yeah.
Right? That last 4.5 minutes of this game, they gave up 2 points. Right, and we always think about the scoring. We always think about, well, what are the Knicks going to do if their number one scorer, Brunson, is out? Their number two scorer, Randall, is out. OG, who is great. What are they going to do? They pick up the slack, man. So it's funny. Like, you know, a team has started to become a viable one. Maybe not championship viable, but one that can do some damage and scare some teams when there's a message that starts at the top and it gets all the way to like the 8th, 9th, 10th guys in basketball. In football, it'd be, you know, the 50th guy. But in basketball, it gets all the way down. All those guys play the same way. They all play with heart. And as much as I thought that wouldn't work, it works for the Knicks. And that tells you how much this team thinks about their head coach and Tom Thibodeau.
Yeah, look, you gave a positive for Tom, because I think sometimes Tom Thibodeau takes too much crap for all these injuries.
He does, because he grinds these
guys.
No,
he does when he deserves it. See, that's the problem. Sometimes any injury that happens becomes that's Thibodeau's fault, and that's not true. There are certain injuries where I've laid it at his feet. You've laid it at his feet. I thought when Dante DiVincenzo had the hamstring issue a couple weeks ago, sure, you could put that on Thibs. Last night, Jalen Brunson's injury is not on Tom Thibodeau.
No.
Julius Randle's injury from a few months ago is not on Tom Thibodeau.
Except he didn't need to be in the game, but that's okay.
That's a different thing, because it's a fine line between deciding when to take a guy out and when to have a guy in.
Yeah, when is the game over?
But you are right about this. The identity of this team, even when they're shorthanded, is that they can still compete. Even that Warrior game a few days ago, they didn't win, they competed. Last night, even without Donovan Mitchell, that's a game you lose. That's why, for my money, that was the most impressive Knick win they've had all season long. I think that is their most impressive win, because I also feel like players, when they see their leader, their king, Jalen Brunson, go down the way he did, 47 seconds into the game, they have to think what we're all thinking, which is, holy crap.
Well, I think the other thing, and this is a Leon Rose issue, not issue, but a credit. It's one thing to bring in backups, guys who are going to be, you know, your 20-minute-a-game guys, your 8-minute-a-game guys. It's one thing to bring those guys in, and they're just like, I'm here, I'm good, and maybe I'll get in my 6 or 7 minutes. But when you have those guys that are like, they want to play, like they want to be, like they want their opportunity, like we saw with Deuce last night, like we've seen with Precious ever since, you know, for the last month or so. Like, when you have these guys that really want to do it, it tells you how well constructed the team is, right? Because it's always like, you're only as good as your bench, right? You're only as good as who can replace the starter who gets hurt. And so you got to feel optimistic about this Knicks squad. But again, this is just the Cavaliers. There's still so much that has to happen, and they still have lost 8 of their last 11.
Now, you say just the Cavaliers. Here's the deal, Knick fans. Forget about NBA titles and getting to the conference finals. You got to take it one round at a time. And right now, the Knicks' mission, no matter how much time they miss Jalen Brunson, no matter how much more time they miss Julius Randle and OG Anunoby, these regular season games matter, because you got to put yourself in the best position to succeed. The New York Knicks, mathematically, as unlikely as it may seem right now, could very well finish as a 2 seed. They're only 4 games behind Milwaukee. With that said, they could finish as far down as an 8 seed. That's the kind of the mark of finish strong, you're the 2, struggle, you're the 8. Which means the New York Knicks' first-round opponent can literally be any team in the Eastern Conference right now. I could make an argument it ends up being Boston. They fall into the play-in tournament. They lose that 7-8 game. They survive the second play-in game. Boom, you're playing the Boston Celtics. I could lay out a scenario where you're playing Milwaukee, whether they're the 2 or the 3. A scenario where they're playing Cleveland, Right now, if the season ends today, they're playing Philadelphia, a scenario where they're playing Orlando, a scenario where they're playing Miami and Indiana. They can literally play anybody. And here's my opinion to the Knicks fans out there, and you tell me if I'm wrong. There are certain teams I just said where if you play them, I think you're going to lose. I think if you play the Miami Heat, you're going to lose to them again. I think if you somehow fall down to that play-in tournament and you got to be matched up with the Boston Celtics, they're going to smoke your ass. Mm-hmm. But if you play Cleveland, you can print those tickets to the conference semifinals if you play Cleveland. If you play Philly, I think a lot of it has to do with the health of Joel Embiid. So, yes, you have to be healthy. We all know that. You got to sit there, you got to light your candles, and you got to pray to whatever basketball gods you pray to that somehow, some way, this team is healthy at the right time of year. No question. But the other major factor that's going to dictate where this season goes is who do you play? And the lesson from last night is if you play the Cleveland Cavaliers, you can go on a run. If you fall down to 6 and they're the 3 seed, and that's how this regular season ends, yeah. I celebrate you.
Oh, I mean, of course.
That puts you in the best position to succeed.
The only challenge of falling down to the 6th seed is that it's tight. It's tight all the way down to the 8th seed.
I agree. You can't pick where you're at and who you're playing. You're right.
So flirting with losses and being okay with losses because it puts you in position to take on the Cleveland Cavaliers in the first round, which feels like a guaranteed win. Not that I'm pushing it, but it feels like they have the Cavaliers number. It puts you dangerously close to being in the play-in tournament. And we don't want to be there.
No, I agree with you. There's not a way where you can control your future because Cleveland could be a 3. They could be a 2. Maybe they drop to 4 or 5. Like, it's all on the table. All I know is that the view that Knicks fans have right now is going to be altered based on who you play. That's going to determine everything. This is a matchups league. And I've argued with Knicks fans about this a lot. Calm down about the regular season. Good and bad, by the way. Mm-hmm. Good and bad. Like, for example, losing to the Orlando Magic doesn't mean you can't beat them in the postseason. Just like success, if you had any against the Boston Celtics, doesn't mean you're going to beat them.
Right.
My opinion on Cleveland is not simply about last night. It's who they are. It's look into the mirror at who they are. They are soft. They're not any different than they were a year ago. And here's what the Knicks have over Cleveland that's unique and special. And I'm not sure you guys ever had this in the NFL. Tell me if you did.
The mental beat.
Oh, you got them beat mentally.
Yeah.
They are done. They look into your eyes, even when it's Deuce McBride, even when it's Dante DiVincenzo, even when it's Hart. When they look into your eyes, they know they're going to come up small. They did it in the playoffs last year. They did it last night. That is a brutal loss if you're Cleveland.
Of course it is.
I don't care that Spider wasn't playing.
Yeah, right. But there's nobody for the Knicks either, especially after a minute into the game. And I wonder, like, how that happens in basketball. There's so much ego in the NBA. I can see why it happens in football, even baseball, because you play a team that just smashes 5 home runs a game. Like, you can be mentally beat, especially if you have an inferior pitcher on the hill. Football, physical, mean, like, just dirty team. Like, you can get mentally beat. In basketball, where there's so many egos and everybody thinks they're the greatest, even if they're not, how you get beat so consistently in your mind before it ever gets on the court is surprising to me.
I think I have an answer to that. I think that one team is very, very soft and one team will fight you. The Knicks' identity is that they're tough. Mm-hmm. Even without their best players, they are a tough-minded basketball team. I think that's why a lot of Knicks fans love them. It's why Josh Hart, to me, really exemplifies who they are.
Of course.
And Cleveland is not. There are certain teams, you watch them, and they're just frauds. Like, you can feel the fraudness coming out of them. The Cleveland Cavaliers are that. And so if you match up with them in the opening round of the postseason, you have a chance to go on that run. And here's the beauty of the NBA playoffs, and this would be my strategy if I'm a Knicks fan. Get me that easiest opponent early, because as the tournament goes on, you never know what's going to happen. Maybe a really good team gets picked off like we saw last year by Milwaukee getting knocked off by Miami.
Right.
Maybe there's a catastrophic injury that happens at the absolute worst time. Not late January, but the middle of April or middle of May. So you want to put yourself in that spot where you're playing the teams you can beat early, delay that Boston series as long as you can, because as much as I don't think they're beatable, as much as I think they're going to smoke the Eastern Conference, let time continue to tick, because maybe they face a big injury.
Yeah.
Maybe something happens that none of us see coming.
I think the hard part for the Knicks right now, and also the Knicks fan, but mostly the players, is that it feels like you're biding time. You're biding time. Let's beat Atlanta. Let's beat the Magic. We got the 76ers still compromised. Let's win a couple in a row just so we stabilize.
Yes.
As opposed to let's charge towards the postseason. Let's start getting better towards the postseason. Let's get streaky and hot right when we get close to the postseason. So it's a weird mindset that the Knicks is in right now because you're winning what you can. You almost can't look forward. Like, we're looking forward. We're talking as fans. We're saying, Cavaliers are frauds. Like, we can beat a lot of these teams that are in the Eastern Conference. But the Knick himself is, all right, we breathe. We live to breathe another day, right? We have another day. So let's just go get the next one. Let's just go get the next one. Because the uncertainty of the injury situation is just, it's real. Like, you feel it. And it's like you're walking on eggshells almost every single game.
No doubt.
You don't know what's going to happen next.
And
Negative.
And last night was one of those nights. It's one of those nights I've experienced many, many times as a sports fan. A night in which all you could think about is another human being's health, and it's not your son or daughter or wife or husband. All you can think about is, was it non-contact? Is Jalen okay? Yeah. Is Jalen okay? Knicks fans couldn't sleep last night worried about if Jalen's okay. More on that coming up next at 877-337-6666. And what team do you want in the first round? To me, if you play Cleveland, you have a ticket to the second round of the playoffs. But if you play Boston, if you play Milwaukee, you're done. And all of a sudden, we're talking about this Knicks season very differently if it ends after one round. We'll get to your calls coming up, plus the impact of injuries. Jalen Brunson may have avoided it, but we haven't as a city over the years. We'll talk about that coming up live from the Town Fair Tire Studios, powered by Town Fair Tire. Nobody beats Town Fair Tire. Nobody.